So good. I love what you said, fear inducing. It was very
Hmm.
fear inducing in the beginning. And you said it was about at age 30 that you decided to take the jump and take the leap and jump full force into even more of who you were becoming. Was there, thinking about it now, was there any part of you that knew that before you were 30? Like, did you hear a whisper or like get an itch a little bit sooner, but the fear was too much? Like, what was that block of time in your life of like knowing, then the fear, and then actually doing the thing?
Yeah, oh, that was a whole. I think that was almost a full 2 years. I mean, early on in 2020, I hired, which was surprising, but I had hired my first coach, and one of the things he asked me was, "How do you like your job?" And he knew right away that when I stuttered or didn't hesitate and say, "I love my job," he knew there were some areas for me to dive into to learn more about. And I had said that, "Hey, I have a side business." This was at the time in 2020, doing nutrition coaching, and I would love to make it full time, but I don't think it's realistic. And that's where the fears start to set in. I kept telling myself, it's not realistic. It can't happen. I'll never be able to make this much money. And I had the conditioning before all of that. So it took truly a full 2 years of me breaking through so many interpersonal barriers that I had put up on my own and created this pressure and this, essentially, as you said, fear and just unrealistic thinking, that I had to break through in order for me to finally get the courage to take action. And that, of course, meant lots of journaling and coaching and mentoring and meditation and writing out what I want and what I don't want, and sticking to my boundaries. And accumulation of all of that is what led for me to finally be able to take that leap, which, um, that leap itself was the scariest part. After that, you're just in it. And so, just like anything, there was always challenges. There was challenges at my old job. There's still challenges in my business now. It's just, which challenges are you interested in choosing? So that's where I noticed that journey really took me. And that 2 year journey of what it took me through has also allowed for me to then be able to serve my clients at a highest level, because knowing that there's so many things deep down in terms of limiting beliefs and self limitations that we put on ourselves that have to be uncovered first if we're going to make true lasting change.
Hmm. I love what you said of there's always going to be challenges, but what challenges are you choosing?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's going to be the quote graphic that we make for this
Sure.
episode. I always do like,
Yeah.
promotional content, and that's powerful because I think it's important for anybody listening. And I've made leaps in my life too. It's like, it's not that you get the silver platter with the perfect meal, air
Mm-hmm.
quotes meal, or like that silver platter moment delivered to you. It's just that you get to choose the challenges that you face, knowing that they're in more congruence with the person that you want to be and like
Mm-hmm.
what you want to do in your life. And it seems like what I took from what you said is that seeking more and more clarity, and then sitting with some of those limiting beliefs as we do in
Mm-hmm.
meditation ended up becoming bigger than the fear. Would you say that?
Yeah. 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 And I think that decision itself, and I'm curious what your thoughts even are, is like when you have taken those big leaps, you know, what type of person do you become from taking those leaps? Like what type of confidence in yourself comes from that? Because I know for me, that was where it was like, holy crap, I'm actually doing this. And by me committing to myself, my confidence in what I'm able to do rose so much. And I'm curious if you had similar experiences at all.
Yeah, totally. I think you really get to see what you're capable of. I think you get to see, um, yeah, that you can do hard things. And I know that you and I both have a background in fitness and love working out. And I think that's to me how working out matters even more, because you have opportunities to do hard things and feel good afterwards and push through limits in a way that it transcends into other areas of our lives, instead of it being about what we look like and if our abs are perfect or whatever. And so I think, leaning on having done hard things in the past, working out wise. And then also looking back in the history of Lunden and being like, okay, that was hard and I did that. Okay, that was hard and I did that. For me, the book that this was before I even knew about Dr. Joe Dispenza. I read a book by Brendan Burchard called High Performance Habits.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like in either 17 or 18 when I was living in Austria. And I was doing a photo shoot and a video shoot because I did fitness modeling and fitness videos and all the things for Runtastic and Adidas. And I remember we were doing a shoot outside I think it was in Spain. And I was like getting my hair and makeup done. And every second I was like plowing through this book, High Performance Habits. And as soon as I finished that book, I knew that that was the moment that everything had changed for me, right? But then it wasn't until 2020, so that's like a 2-year period as well, that I actually left Austria. Granted, it was COVID and all the things, but I left Austria and decided if I was going to be like in lockdown, I was going to be with my family, not in another country on the other side of the world. So that was kind of like a little 2-year period. Because when you said 2 years, I was kind of like, oh, there was some little
Mm-hmm.
bits and pieces of that in my life too. And then I moved back to America and still did. And I remember knowing like, okay, I don't think I want to do the workout stuff anymore. I want to work more on the work ins in my life, in the lives of others. And I still kind of thought, okay, can I make money without doing fitness? Will people be able to see me not as this fitness persona in this fitness light? Like, can I even do this? And so November of 2020, I went to Cancun to my first Dr. Joe week-long retreat. And then at the end of 2022, another 2-year period, right? I decided to completely let go of fitness. I was like, I'm retiring from fitness. I just don't want to do this anymore. I remember just shutting down my online programs, not offering online fitness coaching anymore. And it happened. I was on Zoom teaching somebody squat form. And I remember getting off that Zoom call and being like, I never want to do that shit again. Like, not because it's not great, but there's other people out there who want to teach exercise mechanics and want to do programming and all of that. And I just
Mm-hmm.
did not feel in alignment with that anymore. So you saying kind of that 2-year period also kind of reminded me of that as well. And not that it takes anybody 2 years to make a decision. It might be 2 years, it might be 5 years, it might be 30 days, whatever. But I think there's value in kind of zooming in and honing in on once we decide. And then, of course, believing in our dreams, believing in our capabilities, boosting our confidence and all of that. But then setting up like some strategic groundwork of like, okay, what can this look like? And then sometimes taking the leap anyway. And so, yeah, when I did that, though, I started thinking about, okay, when I was 17, I left my parents' house 5 hours away. I went to college, right? And I remember being overwhelmed by doing my own laundry and like having to do like grocery shopping and go to school full time. And so I remembered that. And then I remember moving to Austria, and that was like, gosh, a whirlwind roller coaster of emotions for the first year, right? I
Mm-hmm.
remember crying in the store because I couldn't find kale and quinoa, like the real struggles of life, you know? So then I remembered, okay, you did that and that was scary, right? And so then I think that being able to look back, I think sometimes people don't slow down enough to look at their timeline or their history of themselves to be like, okay, I've done hard shit before, I can do it again. I've done something scary before, and I didn't die. And so I think that was really helpful too, but it didn't take away the scaredness or some of the limiting beliefs of, oh, can I do it?
Mm-hmm.
But to your point, yeah, when you do it, when you do step out, when you do just decide, okay, I'm never going to feel like perfectly congruent and fully confident to just do this now. I'm just going to go after it. That was really, and I look back even now, it's been a little over a year since choosing that challenge, to use your words,
Mm-hmm.
of not doing fitness anymore, diving into life coaching and NLP and helping people with the work-ins and healing trauma and, all of that. I'm like, oh yeah, that was really scary. And I did that. And that leads me to believe, and I don't know how you feel, I think like, okay, well, what's more? Like,
Mm-hmm.
what else haven't I figured out about my courage yet? And how can I like scare myself even more, if that makes
Yeah.
sense, but not in a way that makes me want to run from it. It's like I almost want to run more towards it. Does that feel the
Mm-hmm.
same for you?
Yeah, well, what I notice is there's that initial discomfort in trying something new, and then we get to a baseline again, and we're like, wait, this seems like not complacency, but you feel a little bit comfortable, like you're at, as you said, I did this, but like, what's next? So I've reminded myself of, and it is great to remind ourselves of the hard things we've done and being grateful for where we're at, and still being okay and with knowing that we can still evolve in different areas. Not to say that we aren't satisfied with where we're at, because I think that piece is being grateful in that moment is super important. However, on top of that, what else can I do to evolve, and how else can I show up? And so, yeah, I definitely see where once we get to that point, it's also like it's just a loop. You move into the discomfort, but then you manage it enough to where it's normal. It's not easy. It's more normalized. It's more familiar, so it doesn't feel as uncomfortable. And in order for us to evolve, we have to do something uncomfortable, which is just something unfamiliar, in order for us to create true change. And if we're not changing at all times, then and the world's changing and other people are changing, then we're stuck staying the same. And that's where I notice so many people find themselves feeling distanced from, oh, this person's already here, so I'll never start, because they've just been staying the same for years, and other people have been moving forward. And that perception of what they feel like is a really far out dream is what becomes very daunting. And I don't think that that's necessarily true, because those people just took the same type of steps you and I took, which are consistent small steps over time, and they're just that much further along the journey. So being real transparent with yourself on where we're at with the journey. And I love that you're being willing to open into new areas where, like, what can I get into that scares me a little bit? Because I think there's many people that say if it's not scaring you just a little bit, then more than likely your dreams aren't big enough, or something along those lines. And I say that's relatively true. Otherwise, you're just playing it safe. And I think each and every one of us has unlimited amount of potential. It's just the limitations we put on ourselves that are keeping the world from getting that potential. And that's a disservice to us. It's a disservice to the people who really need our help. And that's where I found myself in a struggle with, especially when I was at my old job, knowing my knowledge, expertise, and experience and how I could help people, except I felt almost guilty by just doing this job that I had no interest in, simply for the money, while there are people out there that could be using my help. So diving deep into that is super important, and your heart usually knows what it wants best. So listening to that intuition is highly important.